So before I do any editing, first thing I like to do is I like to get all the data off of my cameras and load it onto an external hard drive. This is currently a SanDisk 4 terabyte that I'm currently running. Just dumping all the data just so I have it in its raw form before I do anything on the app. You can do all your editing on your computer. I just found out, though, that when I use the 360 editor, the files are very, very large. And if you're loading up to Instagram or YouTube, sometimes the files are too big for them to actually accept. I make sure that when I am moving them over, I move over every file. So I click from the top and drag it all the way to the bottom and move everything over. The reason I do that is if I ever have to edit them again in the app, I need to make sure I have every single file. This way I can just move the whole folder over. What I found out is with these USB-Cs, and I'm sure it's with USB-Bs, but since the C is what's used on the Go's and the X3s, is some of these are only meant to charge. They will not move data. So if you're having issues when you plug it in and nothing's coming across, well, maybe you want to change your cord. The X3s you can plug directly in and use it through the UDisc mode, or you can take the micro SD out and plug it directly into the computer, or use a micro SD to SD card reader and into the computer. I find that to be faster than running the USB-C cards. As far as the Go 3s, those are set the way they are. They have internal memory, so you turn your camera on. After the camera is on, you'll plug in the USB-C, and then you'll go to UDisc mode just to turn it on. You don't want to go to webcam mode because we're just trying to move data. After that's on, again, I can see all the files by clicking the DCIM, go to camera number 1, and that has everything there. Alright, so now that the X3 files have been downloaded, because I run 2 X3s, what I will do is after I clear out the cache on one, I'll load up the second SD, like so. Again, going into the DCIM folder, camera number 1. And what I do different with this guy is I'm going to copy everything from the hard drive that I first took off of the first card. Copy. Making sure I have all the files again. I will then click into the SD card of the second camera, move everybody over here to X3, and while that's loading on one, I will then click onto our SD card that I'm copying all the files over for and load everything from the first camera onto it. The reason I do this is I'm then able to keep all the data onto one X3 so I can edit all of my videos while only keeping one of my cameras on. Because I like to crop and split my videos and mix, you know, the transitions from one camera to the other. This allows me to do it all on one setting instead of saving the data and moving it on to my actual hard drive on the iPad when I do my editing, which is what I don't want to do. I want to try and keep the data off of my iPad so it runs the fastest, because again, as you can see, we're talking about almost 80 gigabytes of memory is being moved onto these cameras just from one single day of shooting. So, quick breakdown of the two cameras we're working with, the X3 and the Go 3. This is the Go 3S. The newest upgrade that I like on it is this little camera right over here. It does have a removable lens, which you can just unscrew off. Carry replaceable lenses, which is nice. Just in case there's a little scratch on it, you're not having to buy a whole new camera. And the lenses are actually pretty cheap. Otherwise, for the older Go 3 models, you can just buy the little glass cover, the tempered glass to protect it. I like using the little bags that I buy off Amazon. This is just so I can put the camera in the pocket without scratching the lens. Also so I can throw it in the bag without having to worry about anything. And then probably the most important for any of these shooting matches is, again, the hat clip. Some people will attach this above the rim, some people go below the rim. It's whatever works for you. But that's for the Go 3. Alright, so let's talk about the X3 and some of the accessories I like to use with it. First things first is the removable lens guard. Those come off real quick with the 2 snaps on the side. It's called the premium lens guards. I used to have the semi-permanent ones that you used to use the glue to put on the outside. The problem with that was if it was raining outside or there was any sort of super heat on it, they would fog up and then I'd lose all that camera footage for the day. So that was a little irritating. I found with this, if it's raining, I just pop it off. It's much easier to work with. Plus, if they get scratches, they're much easier and faster to replace. Because of that, it makes the head a little bit bigger. So I do like, still protecting the lens somewhat. So the little microfiber covers that they send with the kit, I put a little 1-inch cut into that, little 1 inch, 1.5 inch, and that gives me enough space to slide it up and over the top. Alonzi is the name of the company that I recommend a lot of my stuff from. I started originally with using these, clamping them to the walls, but I found out these plastic necks, when you move them enough, they crack. This one's held on together by electrical tape. They can only handle so much abuse. This is an Alonzi stick. It has the quick release, but any sort of, pull that you can use. This has a tripod on the bottom, so if, there isn't a wall, I can then set it up further down the stage. And with that, I can get a front end or a downrange shot without putting anybody at risk. The newest thing that I found from Alonzi is these all metal clamps. So they're fully adjustable. They can take the abuse. I've been using them for almost a year now. No issues. And they open quite wide. If it is too large of a wall for you to attach to, I have found that I bring little C-clamps with me that'll clamp onto any one of the walls. And then I just clamp this onto the C-clamp. What's also nice about this is this can also attach to my S3 range bag, so I can just put my range bag downrange as long as my buddies are willing not to shoot it, and then I'll also have a downrange shot without ever needing a pull. So definitely recommend this from Alonzi, as well as any sort of pull. I think those will do you the most good as far as the X3 accessories. So for my X3, I use the SanDisk Extreme Pro 1 terabyte cards. They're the V30 XCs, class A2. I find these guys work perfectly fine for doing all-day shooting. They can do up to 19 hours, I believe, is what it's set up on my X3 for the 1 terabytes. Biggest thing is when you buy them online, when you first get them, put them in the camera, make sure they actually work. Sometimes there are some counterfeits. Amazon's really good about replacing them. The other thing is for the X3, when you're purchasing them, make sure you're using the Insta360 batteries. Buying the off-brand, I'm not a big fan of. I worry about, 1, them overheating, 2, shorting the camera. I mean, we're sticking some of these out in the middle of the sun, and they do get quite warm. Again, I was just by the name brand battery. It's not worth having a $400 camera decide that it's going to, set aflame because we bought a cheap Chinese knockoff. So working on the Go 3, first thing you're going to want to do is, if you're slide from the right side to the left, you're going to bring up your auto versus your manual. You can change your color settings here. The biggest thing for me, I noticed for shooting, is in the top right here, there's what's known as EV. EV controls how the camera starts adjusting to light. So if it's a very, very, very bright day and you don't want it to, overtake, I will go into the negatives. And by doing that, the camera adjusts better to light. It means you have less post-production editing that you have to do. Again, if it's too dark, you increase the EV and it gets more sensitive to the light. Very similar to ISO if you've ever shot with cameras before. The other thing is going into the camera settings. I shoot in 1080. I try and keep the frame rate to 30. I'm not moving at any ridiculous speed where I would need a frame rate of 50, and 30 is also what I keep my X3s at, because if I'm doing multiple editing on 2 different videos, I want them to be at the same frame rate, especially if I'm going to do video inside video. Ratios at 16:9. Other nice things on this, you guys can scroll down. We have your other settings. You don't need to put grids on unless that's something you're looking for. Brightness, alarms. Some of these are also voice activated. If you go from the right to the left, you'll be able to see what videos you have and look at them before you move them into the app. A little bit more involved with the X3. Camera setting again in the bottom left, you can click on it. You can either do single lens or 360. I use the 360 setting. Big things you want to pay attention to 360 is trying to make sure both lenses are getting the same amount of light. If the sun's on one side of the camera and the other side's darkness, the camera sometimes has some issues reading with that. Scrolling off to the right, we can get the EV mode, again, like on the Go 3s, depending on what you're shooting in. If it's, darkness, we'll increase EV. If it's super bright, we're going to decrease EV. You can change the color settings to, I have mine set at vivid currently. Let's scroll down. Big things, again, I use the lens guard, so to confirm the lens guard is on, so make sure that the camera knows that there's a piece of glass or a piece of plastic in front of it before you do your shooting. So before I shoot a stage, I try and make it as simple as possible, because I know sometimes it's hard to tell if your camera's on, camera's off. I keep my camera off at all times. I get up to the stage, or just before I'm getting ready, I will take the Go 3 out of the docking station, click it onto my hat, and then I will wait. When they ask me, to make ready, I will then hit the button one single time. I know within about 3 to 5 seconds the camera is going to turn on. I will then shoot my stage. After I finish, I either head back to my bag if I want to make sure I can see all my targets afterwards, or if it's a level 1 match and I really don't care about the score, I was just having fun, I will then click it one time, and I know the camera is going to be shut off. After it's been shut off, just to make sure I don't run out of battery, I put it back in the docking station, make sure that the red light turns on so I know it's charging, put it inside my case, and I'm good. I don't have to worry about it anymore. Same rules I follow with the X3s. I don't keep them on. I'll set them up on the stage at the beginning of the stage where I think I'm going to get the best camera point. And then at that point, when I'm getting ready to shoot, or there's 2 shooters ahead of me, I'll go on. I'll hit the circle button on the bottom left just once. I know within 3 to 5 seconds it's going to turn on. I don't have to worry about it. It'll run for 25 minutes. After that, I come back, finish the match. I click it one more time, just once. It's going to shut off. I don't have to worry, is the camera on, is it off, is it recording, is it not recording? It saves a whole lot of battery time.